Welcome to the She's Bold podcast. I'm Beth Whitman. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the She's Bold podcast. This is where you'll hear one-on-one conversations with women who have inspirational stories to share. These are women who are breaking new ground in their fields, who are making their own way through the world by saying yes and pursuing the things that perhaps at one time they weren't so sure they could accomplish. Under normal circumstances, I record in person, often at my home office here in Seattle, or I record when I'm on the road and have the opportunity to meet with someone while I'm traveling. During this rather crazy time, I've been recording remotely. But today, I'm going to reach back into the Wayback Machine for an episode I recorded just prior to us being locked down here in Seattle. As a matter of fact, this was recorded literally days before we had a stay-at-home order. Today's guest is Chef Maria Hines. Maria is quite a well-known figure in the world of cuisine here in Seattle, and we are certainly lucky to have her here. In 2005, she was named one of the top 10 best new chefs in America by Food and Wine magazine. In 2008, the New York Times recognized her restaurant Tilth, which opened in 2006, as one of the 10 best new restaurants in the country. And in 2009, she won the James Beard Award for the best new chef in the Northwest. Maria has a new book that just came out called Peak Nutrition: Smart Fuel for Outdoor Adventure. And the book came from her experience as a climber and her realization that she needed to fuel properly in order to get the most out of her climbing performance. Now, as you can well imagine, things have been a bit sidelined with her restaurant for the past couple of months, but Tilth just reopened on July 1st with limited seating capacity and with curbside pickup. So if you're in the neighborhood, be sure to support this woman-owned independent restaurant. I know you won't regret it. Hey, one quick reminder before we get to our conversation today. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to show your support, you can do so with a donation through Patreon. By becoming a part of our community, you'll have access to bonus content, which is usually in the form of a question I ask guests. And in Maria's case, I asked her to give a few tips on how we can get back into alignment with ourselves, meaning how to avoid being so stressed out and how we might get to know ourselves better. So you'll get to hear her answer to that. As a Patreon supporter, you'll also get a heads up about what guests are coming up and have the ability to get your questions answered. You'll also be invited to join our private Facebook group, and that is ladies only. Support of any shape or size is greatly appreciated, as it's a vote of confidence from you that you enjoy the show and find value in it. Patreon supporters are raising their hands and saying, yes, I understand the value of bringing these conversations to light, especially at a time when there's just so much negativity going around, so much darkness. Hopefully, these conversations bring you some inspiration and some uplifting feelings. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/bebold. If you'd prefer to make a one-time donation, you can do that too via Venmo or PayPal, and that information is all on the Patreon page. Okay, with that, please enjoy this conversation with Chef Maria Hines. So what is it that's keeping you so busy these days? It was somewhat difficult for us to kind of find a time slot to sit down. So what are you up to?
Well, running a restaurant.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
So you've been running a restaurant for a really long time, though. Is it 2007, was it, or 6?
2006.
That Tilth opened. Has your life been like that then for the past 14 years?
It's been that way since I've started working in the restaurant industry. It's just really, really busy and really demanding and requires a lot of time and
What's a
energy.
typical day look like for you?
Like 12-hour days generally.
Yeah, but what are you doing when you're not in the restaurant actually cooking or overseeing meals? How does your day unfold?
I'm on the computer, with my PR team, with my bookkeeping team, with, lawyer, CPA, all of the things that it takes to actually run a business.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like fun.
I enjoy it. I love it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, and the reason I say that is because, like, I run a business, right? I run a tour company. That's the main chunk of my business, is running a tour company. And, the fun part of it is actually kind of developing tours and then obviously going on a trip and being able to travel and being able to be with a great group of people. But as you said, there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of emails involved. There's, just a lot of organizational stuff. And that, I mean, for me, that stuff just isn't as much fun. But you don't mind that.
I love it all.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So Tilth is your restaurant, but you've got something really exciting that's going on right now. Is this your first book that's coming out?
Yes, this is going to be my first book.
And it's called Peak Nutrition.
Correct.
PEAK, Nutrition.
Yes.
Yep. How was that born? Like, you're a climber. I know that much. I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot about the climbing world. And I don't know about your skill level or how much climbing you're doing. But how did that book come about?
It came about because it doesn't exist. There's no sports nutrition cookbook for the mountain athlete currently. So me and my co-author, Mercedes Paulmeyer, we wanted to create this book.
Why you, and what is it that you're bringing that's so unique to the book? Because I know that there's like a couple things come to mind. There are a couple of books out there that speak to sports nutrition in terms of small bars, nutrition bars. It sounds like your book is a little bit larger than that. Like, are you talking meals in your book?
It's a completely comprehensive book on how you should be fueling yourself. So there's about 175 pages. It's just all on comprehensive sports nutrition. And then the other 175 is there's 100 recipes that come along with it.
And those are not just make rice, put some raisins in it, and take that out on the trail with you or take that out on the climb.
Correct. So it's real food from scratch that you're making.
And is it meal plans then? So is it from breakfast to dinner?
Absolutely. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, different beverages and smoothies. So we really cover the whole gamut.
Got it. Okay. So truly there isn't anything out there like that.
Yeah. And especially not for the mountain athlete, which is an important distinction because a lot of times you don't have the refrigeration that you would, or you don't have a support system. A lot of times if you're doing runs or bike rides, there's people on the side of the road that are handing you things. And if you're in an alpine environment, there's no one halfway up Everest handing you a bar or a glass of water or whatever it is. Or if you're sleeping on the side of El Capitan and on a portaledge, there's no support system for you. There's no refrigeration. A lot of times there isn't a stove, so you have different needs as far as the food that you can bring. And
you learned this from personal experience.
Correct.
That you were out there. Did you know how to fuel yourself when you were first? Oh, well, first let's go back. I want to know about your climbing. How long have you been climbing?
For about 20 years now.
Okay.
But just as a hobby, really just as a hobby.
And still just a hobby.
Yes.
I mean, there's not a lot of professional climbers out there, are there?
There's quite a few, actually.
Oh, are there?
Yeah,
okay.
More and more each day.
Beyond Alex Honnold?
Yeah,
okay.
There sure is.
So 20 years you've been climbing, and over those 20 years, what have you learned about your nutrition? And I'll speak to it or kind of ask the question from my own personal experience that when I first started running, which was maybe 6 years ago or so, I would just go out and I would go for a run. And if I felt tired that day, I would just turn around and I would go home. And then as I started learning more and I started learning about nutrition, I realized that if I had properly fueled in the morning and had even something better to eat the night before and not, half a container of Coconut Bliss ice cream, that I might have had more energy to run in the morning. So was that similar to you, or did you know, because of your background as a chef, did you know from the beginning that you needed to be dialed into your nutrition?
No, I actually learned it through trial and error, just going out there and bonking and trying to figure out how not to bonk and realizing that nutrition was a really key component to increase your performance, reduce your inflammation, shorten up your recovery time, and all of those all of those things are related to what you're putting in your body.
And what do you implement now in terms of doing those things where so that you avoid bonking? I'm imagining you're on an anti-inflammatory diet or something that just isn't inflaming you so much. What are some of those things that you actually do now?
Yeah, so kind of an anti-inflammatory diet. I also make sure that I'm very low carb a few days a week, just so my body gets used to burning fat instead of burning sugar. And then I'll also do some fasting as well, and that seems to really help increase my energy.
Are you doing intermittent fasting?
Yes.
Oh, you are. Okay. So you're doing how many hours out of a day?
I'll fast for about 14 to 16 hours pretty comfortably.
Yeah, that's difficult.
I think you have to work up to it. Maybe start out with 10 and then go 12 and 14 and 16 and just see how your body responds to it. If your body responds well, then, continue to do it. If your body doesn't respond well, then
dial it back.
Yeah, absolutely. But everyone is different. Everyone's body is unique. Everyone's hormones are different. Everyone's different age, different energy needs, different things going on medically. So it's really kind of personal journey that everyone has to discover for themselves on what works and what doesn't work.
That's a good point. I think oftentimes, we read something, a well-intentioned article that says you should fast, like intermittent fasting, typically 16 to 18 hours, I think is pretty typical that they might suggest, but they don't take into account that women are very different. It's very different for women compared to men. And the fact that you said, just test it on yourself and be aware of how it is. 12 hours is really easy for me. And if I eat in less than 12 hours, from, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. or, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. if it's less than the 12 hours, then I just feel overly stuffed, like I really do need to give it those 12 hours. But then it starts to get difficult for me. It's like, I just start to lose my energy. And I run first thing in the morning too. I don't imagine you're climbing first thing in the morning, but I run first thing in the morning. So I feel like I've got to get my nutrition in at least. Do you have a favorite recipe in there that it's just something kind of your go-to thing?
Wow. That's really hard. It was hard to narrow it down to 100 recipes in the book. So to narrow it down to just one recipe that I enjoy would be really hard to do. But I would say the shrimp and grits for a dinner item is really delicious and wonderful and satisfying. And
that's going to give you your protein and your carbs and some good fats too, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the fish tacos are wonderful as well. I can eat fish tacos, a couple of times a week, no problem. And it's really good for you. All the omega fatty acids that are in there, all of that is really incredible. And then you add some avocado to it, so you have even more healthy fats. Add a load of vegetables on there. It's really incredible. And then the kimchi recipe that I have in there, that's also a go-to that you can put on anything. You make a big batch, keep it in your refrigerator, and it goes with just about everything. Whether you're having scrambled eggs or whether you're going to have it with a piece of steak or if you're going to have it on top of a little bit of rice, it really complements a lot of things.
The recipes that are in the book, were they just kind of from your knowledge over the years as a chef, or were you developing new things for the book? And the reason I ask is that I'm wondering, there's a lot of recipes in there. How much testing were you having to do?
I tested every single one of the recipes, but a lot of the dishes we actually have at Tilth restaurants. So we either have a component, of a dish, like I might put the different components together differently in the book to make sure that it meets the macronutrients that Mercedes and I are trying to hit as far as your fats and your carbohydrates and your protein levels. But a lot of the dishes and certain components definitely are a part of the menu that we have at Tilth.
Okay.
And we change the menu once a month at Tilth, so it's not going to be on there year round, but we often have shrimp and grits on the menu at Tilth. We often make kimchi at the restaurant, and serve it on the menu. So there's definitely a handful of items that, they are really healthy and they're good for you from a nutrition standpoint, and it's going to really help your performance, but it's really delicious, tasty food that you would eat outside of just trying to get ready for an event.
So you have a testing ground already. Like I know people who have created cookbooks, but they don't have a restaurant. So they're in their kitchen a couple of times a day making, testing and retesting recipes and photographing for the cookbook. And you're a tiny woman. So I couldn't imagine you sitting and having to create these from scratch without having that background or kind of like the testing ground of the restaurant. And that's where I was coming from in terms of that. Because that's a lot of taste testing.
I did test every recipe in my home kitchen to make sure that it would work for people who are testing the recipe or people who are making the recipe in their home kitchen, because they're not going to have a commercial kitchen. They're not going to have a Tilth restaurant to produce their dishes out of. So I wanted to make sure that I was using the equipment that a home cook would use. Yeah, it's important to me to make sure
and
that
in the batch
the recipes,
size.
Correct.
So how do you stay so tiny? 20 years of climbing?
Yeah, I'm just really active and I'm really mindful about how much I eat. Because I am tiny, I only need a tiny amount of food. So I think as long as people are kind of aware of, okay, well, this is what my energy level needs are. So this is how much food I actually need to eat.
Mm-hmm. So it's portion control.
Yes.
And small plates.
Yes.
Not American, the usual American size plates that we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how did you get into food and cooking? Was this something that, like, when you were a kid, you were just always fascinated or interested in?
Oh, absolutely. I've loved cooking ever since I was a kid. So,
did you grow up in the Seattle area?
No, I grew up in San Diego.
So you were always fascinated. Was it a big part of your family life, your home life?
Absolutely. You know, my mom made dinner every night, and
my mom did too. But I was never fascinated by the meals that she cooked. You know, so you had a home where your mom was cooking. Did you feel like those meals were special?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Just because they were prepared from scratch, and I was able to help cook a lot of times. And I think as a kid, when you get to be involved in the kitchen and help prepare the meals, then you're more excited to eat the meals. You feel engaged.
Do you have siblings?
Yes,
were they
two
all,
sisters.
Were they all involved in the process, or were you kind of the standout kid that was next to mom all the time?
I was one who was definitely the most excited about cooking.
And when did you come up to Seattle then?
1999.
And was that for the cooking industry, or was that so that brought you up here?
Absolutely.
Because
there's just such a wonderful bounty and such close access to local farms in the area, and all the wonderful, fish and shellfish that we have access to, and foraged goods. And it just seemed like a really beautiful place to find incredible ingredients to cook with.
Was there a big cuisine scene at that time, or was that any part of the draw, or was it specifically because of the bounty, because of what was up here?
I think it was just starting to really boom. Seattle was really starting to be on the uprise as far as a culinary destination. So it seemed like between that and all of the bounty of the ingredients here, it seemed like the perfect place to come and live and cook.
Did you feel like you were on the front wave, or like the front of the wave of something big that was happening here at that point?
I don't know. It's hard to say, because I think we constantly have these waves of, something big happening, whether it's now, local seasonal organic, or chef-owned restaurants, or, James Beard awarded chefs, or neighborhood restaurants. So it's really, I don't know that I would consider myself on the wave of anything in particular, mainly because I want to just respect all of the work that everyone has done over decades. I've only been here for 20 years, so a lot of things have happened with our culinary history in Washington State before I even decided to move here.
Right, I see. Yeah, so you're giving due respect to the people who came before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They've allowed me to, carve out my own path here, and if it wasn't for all of their hard work, I wouldn't be chef owner of a 14-year-old restaurant.
Right. Yeah. Successful, very successful restaurant. Now, one thing that I will give you credit for, and I want to give you kind of a shout out for, is that if I have my information correct, Tilth was the second certified organic restaurant in the country.
Yes.
Is that right?
Certified through Oregon Tilth, which is the most rigorous of organic certifiers.
What drove you to create that kind of environment?
It's how I ate at home. It's what I believed in. And if I was going to open up a restaurant, I really wanted to make sure that it was deeply meaningful, not only in just cooking really, beautiful food and creating a place of community, but something that also supported the land in a healthy, sustainable way and help support the community in a very sustainable way, with the farmers and the fishers and the foragers and all of that.
Was it really difficult at that point?
No, not really. I mean, it took a little bit of legwork to track down all of the organic ingredients, but once you figure out where to source it all, then it's easy from there. So I'd say it took about 6 months to really kind of get it dialed in, but 6 months isn't, in the long term, not too much time to wait to be able to really make it happen and make that commitment.
Do you think it's exponentially easier today, or it would be exponentially easier today for someone to start a restaurant and have that same goal of having a certified organic
absolutely
restaurant, so they can kind of come in and there's so many more options?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of your food is locally sourced as well. Is
correct,
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Tilth has been going for quite a while. And you jumped in, and I know I don't actually know about other cities. I can only assume that it's somewhat like this. But once a chef has established her or himself in a city, it's quite popular to then open up additional restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom Douglas, I think, is probably the biggest name that we have in the Seattle area in terms of that. Does he have the most restaurants? Do you know
between
offhand?
him and Ethan Stoll, they're definitely
Ethan Stoll
the two
too,
big players.
right? Okay, and you had opened up Golden Beetle and
Agrodolce?
Yeah, Agrodolce. Okay, I wanted to make sure I got the name right. That's why I was hesitating.
Yeah, no problem.
So you'd opened up both of those, and did you go into that thinking that it might be a mini empire for you? Empire might be too big of a word to use.
Yeah, for three restaurants, empires is pretty big, I'd say.
Yeah, but did you go into it thinking like this is the next kind of path or the next wave that's happening? Is that I should open these other restaurants?
I really wanted to. I didn't have a prediction on how many. I just had Tilth and things were going great, and then I opened up Golden Beetle and things were going great. And then so I opened up Agrodolce, and then that was kind of during the restaurant bubble and everyone was opening up restaurants. And so it became harder and harder to compete in that market. So I decided to just refocus myself on having the one.
So when was that bubble, would you say, when everybody was opening restaurants?
About 2010.
So after the stock market crash, after the crash in 2008, the financial crash, I should say, in 2008, people came back, and that's when there was kind of on an upswing of restaurants. Is that what happened?
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of kind of that's what was happening at that point. So it's been an up and down kind of for the industry, obviously. I mean, that happens all the time, like you said. So now you're focused on Tilth, and you're good and solid with that.
Yes.
And I read it might be a rumor. Do you have nutritional bars that you're working on?
I'm working on them. They should be available by May or June.
Excellent.
I'll have some energy bars out on the market.
Okay. What will they be called? Do you know yet?
Synergy is the name of the company.
SYN.
C, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's spelled a little bit differently. Yeah.
Okay.
So Synergy with a C instead of an S.
And so we'll be able to find those hopefully in all the major food stores.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That's what we're working on. And then I just launched a online nutrition coaching business called Mazama Nutrition. So this book has inspired me and had me so deeply ingrained into the nutrition world that I decided I wanted to do what I could to help as many people as I could using food as medicine, whether it's for, they found out they're pre-diabetic and they need to get their blood sugar under control, or they want to lose some weight, or they want to increase their performance, or, they want to do something to kind of help with their arthritis, kind of running the gamut of whatever people need from a nutrition coaching standpoint to use food as medicine and live a healthy and long-lasting life.
And that's Mazama, Mazama.
It's, Mazama, yes, nutrition, yeah. Inspired by our beautiful little town, Mazama, up in the North Cascades.
I know you just described the reason why you wanted to start Mazama. Am I saying that correctly?
Mazama Nutrition.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I know you just stated why you wanted to create that, but you have so much going on. You've got
the restaurant, energy bars.
Yeah, the cookbook.
Consulting for restaurants, the cookbook.
Right. Why add something else to that?
I love working. I'm so passionate about what it is that I do that I just want to continue to build and grow and, develop myself. And at the same time, make sure that I'm doing things that are in service to others.
What I love about it is that it's not just about building and growing the businesses in terms of restaurants, because I just the little that I know of you and your energy and your interest and your dedication to the food industry, there's no doubt that if you wanted to, you could have a restaurant empire. But it almost seems like the things that you're doing is so much more in service and so much more helpful to people. Yet it all comes back to nutrition, and it all comes back to food, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really. How do you keep your energy up besides good nutrition? Like, how do you keep your interest in your energy up for doing all of these things?
Yeah, the nutrition is really helpful. When I was running 3 restaurants at one point, I ended up getting adrenal fatigue. And, in Western medicine, it's a term that it's not an actual diagnosis. In more of the naturopathic world, there's a little bit more familiarity with it. But when your cortisol levels shoot up really high, you then start to have a really hard time sleeping, and you're constantly in flight mode. So I had so much going on all the time, and the stress level was very high, being the owner and running 3 restaurants without any business partners, that, I basically had a system crash. So I had,
What did that look like? How did that?
You don't sleep well at night. Your energy level is low. It's really hard to focus. And that was enough for me to say, okay, I need to revisit this. What am I doing? What are my intentions? And how do I get my energy level back? So I went on to a adrenal fatigue diet. Dr. Alan Christensen has written a book just on that and followed the protocol. And within 30 days, I saw, like a 80% improvement. And then, after another month or 2, I had full energy plus a surplus of energy that came back through proper nutrition.
How long do you think that was going on for, that adrenal fatigue, the issues and the symptoms of that?
Probably a good 6 months at least.
Okay, that's not too long. I think a lot of people would ignore something like that for a lot longer.
Yeah.
So, you get into it and then you think this isn't normal.
Yeah.
You know what? I wasn't feeling like this a few months ago.
Yeah, that's very common. It's very common.
Can I ask how old you are?
47.
Was there premenopausal stuff going on there, do you think?
No.
It was all just stress, adrenal.
Yeah, because I had my cortisol levels checked, and I was working with a functional medicine doctor. But also going back, you said, okay, it's not just what are you doing beyond nutrition to keep your energy level up
and your interest, right?
My interest up. So it was definitely really helpful to just get my energy level back to where I was used to having it. And then after that, then it was important for me to stay vigilant to keep it there or even increase my energy level. So having a really strong morning ritual and having a really strong evening ritual and really focusing on getting really good sleep. So my morning ritual, I wake up, I meditate right away, I fill out my gratitude journal, and I look at my list of everything that I need to do for the day. And then I go into my workday. I have grounded myself. I have started my day with a nice positive outlook. And then I can just be as hard charging as I need to be throughout my day. Oh, and I'll exercise before I start working as well. So that definitely helps get the oxygen flowing into the brain and gives you that little boost of energy that you need. And it's good, clean, sustainable energy. Then I won't eat until probably 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, just depending. So I'm, in a slightly fasted state. That also helps increase your energy and also helps increase your focus level, so I can be super productive. And then in the evening time, what my ritual will be is filling out my gratitude journal again. At the end of the day, do some yoga, some nice relaxing yoga, and then try and cut out any screen time an hour before I go to sleep.
And the end of the day for you must be after dinner, though. That's like, are you at the restaurant at night?
It depends. Generally, I'm there more in the daytime because of all of the business requirements. And then I make sure that my team is set up and ready to go.
Got it. So it's not something that requires you to be there until 10, 11 o'clock at night. Okay. And then what time do you get up in the morning?
Usually 5.
I'm a 5 o'clock in the morning person as well. Yeah, thanks for walking me through that. Were you doing those things before you had your kind of adrenal crash?
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. So these were all things that you kind of learned and picked up?
Absolutely. It's all of that really helps replenish and it gives your body the energy back that it needs. If you can stay in that positive mindset and you start out your day that way, it's amazing how much, anxiety or negative mindset, those sorts of things are things that take energy away. So, just trying to think about what can you do to replenish energies. I
used to wake up in the mornings. I haven't done it so much recently, but I wake up, I do a meditation practice as well and a journal practice. But I used to do this thing in my journal where I would say, I am a person who doesn't eat sugar. Like anything that I was kind of struggling with, I would write it out as if that was true. And then later in the day, if I, wanted, if I was craving sugar, I could go back to my journal and just remind myself, oh yeah, I'm the kind of person who doesn't do that. And that was really helpful because it like doing that gratitude journal, it's kind of the same thing. It's like it reinforces, and for you, morning and night, it's reinforcing something for you throughout the day that you can kind of go back to, like, oh yeah, I appreciate this. Or this morning I wrote to X and, kind of brings that back. So that's great. Yeah. You're in an industry that's really male dominated. Like
it's changing. It's definitely shifting.
But still, what percentage are you saying that it's shifting? I mean, because to me it seems like it's like 80-20, but maybe it's changed much more, 60-40 or so?
Currently, I would say in my kitchen, the ratio is 70% women, 30% men. I mean, that's not typical of all kitchens, and that doesn't mean that is always the ratio. We are, whenever we need to hire, cook or sous chef or, a server or dishwasher, it's whoever comes in through the door, whoever is the best person for the job is the one that we hire. So we don't necessarily have the ability to control what that percentage will look like on any given day or whatever. But we're definitely seeing a lot more women come into the profession, which is great. I don't know what the industry average is right now as far as male to female.
Do you think in your case it's because it's a woman-owned restaurant that you're attracting more women? Is that maybe why you're seeing more 70-30?
Quite possibly.
I could see how I could see how that would be really appealing to someone who's looking for a job. Like they would want to support a woman-owned business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess when I think of it being more male-dominated, it's because we see so many more men out in the public. You don't have those same personalities that are out there in terms of women who are representing. And I think there's probably various reasons for that. But I guess that's why I feel like it's more male-dominated.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to some of the experiences that I've had with women cooks in my kitchen where they start working their way up the ranks and they move into a lead line. And then when they're ready to get promoted to sous chef because they're talented and I want to promote them, there has been an equal amount of women that I had been ready to promote to a sous chef position, which at that point you're on salary, you're working 50 hours a week, you're closing down the kitchen every night, and they make the decision that does not work for a family life. So there has been some occasions where, I offer them the position, but they don't want it because they want to start a family, and it's hard to start a family when you're working weekends and nights and having that, that work-life balance. So,
yeah.
I think some of the disparity that we see as far as more men than women in leadership positions in kitchens a lot of times has to do with that family work balance. Not always, but definitely in my kitchen, that's something that I've seen.
Do you think that's a problem that needs to be solved?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we even address that when it's a really valid point that a woman wants to have a family and that it doesn't fit in, that working late doesn't fit in with family life? How do we even address that?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, people eat at dinner time, so it's not like restaurants can start closing any earlier.
Right. Oh, yeah, I totally get it.
I don't know. Supportive family units, I would say.
So support from the home, because I think that is an issue that's across the board, right? With a lot of businesses and a lot of industries that are demanding, and as you move up the ranks, it becomes you're more demanding on your time, maybe more travel involved, and even if you do have a supportive spouse or a family at home, it's still really difficult to spend that much time away. Yeah, I don't know that there is an answer for it or a fix for it, but it's just, I think it's really good, a really good discussion to have. And maybe the support has to come from within the business, from males kind of understanding the problem and then, helping create environments that are a little bit more balanced. I don't know. But like you said, food industry, people eat at dinner.
Yeah.
You can't
absolutely.
you can't just send people home at 8:00 so they can go feed their own family and spend time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times if you are trying to balance family and work life, and there's, it would be very difficult for both parents to be in really demanding executive positions.
Where did you work before you opened Tilth?
Earth and Ocean Restaurant in the W Hotel.
Okay. And were you there the whole time once you moved up from San Diego?
I was there initially, and then the restaurant Earth and Ocean in the W Hotel was actually managed by the Myriad Restaurant Group. So they had the managing consulting contract for the restaurant within the hotel. They are a group that is outfitted in New York City. So I went and worked at one of and actually they have properties kind of all over the United States. So I went and helped them with an opening in Washington, D.C. for a little bit, and then moved to Manhattan and did some work for Danny Meyer there. And then Myriad Restaurant Group asked me to come back as the executive chef at Earth and Ocean.
How'd you like living in New York?
It was great.
Oh, you loved it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the energy, the excitement of it?
Yeah. The restaurant scene was incredible, and just really good creative, vibe, and a lot of really amazing, talented chefs. And yeah, it was really a great experience.
What makes a chef talented in your eyes? Like when you say that, what are the criteria, or what's the skill that they have that you say, oh yeah, that person's really talented?
Knowing how to put flavors together, having those combinations, that's really important. Understanding how to balance a dish, as far as having different textures going on, as well as just having really good execution, knowing how to season food properly, knowing how to cook food at the right temperature, cooking a perfect piece of fish, or, cooking a perfect steak, or making nice tender pasta, like that. The execution shows the mastery of the skill.
Do you see a lot of personality issues in the industry? I mean, I'm like speaking outside, what I might be watching on TV, and I don't watch these shows, but it's just kind of like what I hear kind of peripherally, like the crazy chefs who are just going mad in the kitchen. Do you see those problems yourself?
Not in my restaurant. I've worked really hard to build a very nurturing, respectful, very focused, and diligent culture within my staff. So that's how it runs. Everyone treats each other with respect. If there's a conflict situation that needs to be resolved, we sit down, we talk about it. The good thing is everyone knows what the end result. They all want the same end result. So there might be differences in the methods in which two people are working on to get to that end result. So it's really just sitting down, having the conversation, talking about what we want the goal to be. And then from there, you have a commonality and you kind of work back into what the two methods are and how can they be blended together in order to move together as a team to get to that end result. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it does. Yeah, very much so within your restaurant. And I think given your experience, I'm assuming that you were working in the restaurant industry in San Diego as
Yes.
well. So just given your experience kind of moving around the country a little bit, do you think it tends to be an industry where there is dysfunction?
Absolutely. And it is changing. It's something that still needs a lot of attention, but it's definitely changing quite a bit.
So for the better, obviously.
Yes, we're seeing an improvement. And again, there still needs to be a lot of attention to it, but there's definitely a lot of improvement. And I would say more so on the West Coast from what I've seen than on the East Coast.
And where do you think those improvements are coming from? Is it just because people are acknowledging it? And
Absolutely.
I don't want to throw him under the bus, but Anthony Bourdain just was famous for having alcohol and drug problems, right? And he talked about that freely. And to me, that seems really typical in the restaurant business, that
Yes.
because it's a lot of late nights and there's
Absolutely.
a lot of bad behavior going on there. And I'm just wondering maybe if it's because people are talking about it more and there's less tolerance for it. Or maybe because there's more women in the industry too.
I think it's all of that. I think it's a culmination of all of that. I think that's why we're seeing things change. There's more tolerance. There's more diversity. Yeah, there's, more women in kitchens and in restaurants. And I think all of that has really made an impact. And we're not there yet. We still need to continue on that path of tolerance and diversity and understanding and working together to solve problems, not only in the restaurant community, but, I would say in our whole community as a whole. That's something that, we continue to strive for.
Have you been on the receiving end of a lot of sexism in the industry?
No, not really. No, not that I could just outright say, yes, this, was sexual discrimination.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't driven to have your own restaurant because you had some experience that said, I'm not putting up with that anymore.
No.
I'm going to do my own thing.
No, I was driven to open up my own restaurant because I wanted to have a certified organic restaurant. And that was very important to me. And I knew that the only way to really kind of see my vision through was to execute it.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, really. I mean, that is fantastic to have such conviction, have such a strong conviction and know the importance of that, to just say, I'm going to open my own restaurant and there's not one around. It's not like you wanted to go in and go into a restaurant that where you were working and try to change the culture there. You just wanted to go build your own.
Yeah.
Where did you get the confidence to do that? Because you would have been in your early 30s when you started.
Yeah.
Where did you get the confidence to just do that?
Well, I was chosen as one of the top 10 best new chefs by Food and Wine magazine. So that was a big confidence builder. And it was, when I received that award in 2005, everyone who I had talked to who had received that award before, it's a pretty big award, and the spotlight is really on you, and you have the media support, and you have the support of the whatever city that you're in with all your guests that come into the restaurant. And at that point it was kind of like, if you do plan on opening up your own place, now is really the best time to do it.
Was this when you were at Earth and Ocean?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. So you won that award, confidence boosted, and just decided that was the time to do it. Yeah. And then was it a year after you opened Tilth that you won the James Beard Award for Best Chef in the Northwest?
That was 2009.
Okay, so a couple of years.
But was nominated 2 years prior.
Okay. So then actually won just a couple of years after you opened. That had to be a confidence booster too. Is that a big deal?
It's a very big deal.
I mean, it seems like a big deal. I'm just wondering if for you, it's
it's still, the James Beard Awards is the Oscars of the restaurant world. So to receive an award that you were voted by your peers is the highest honor, in my opinion.
Is there a big ceremony like in New York for that?
Yes. It's been in Chicago the past couple of years, but when I received the award, it was held at Lincoln Center in New York.
Do you know going into it that you've won, or is it like the Oscars where there's people who are nominated, you show up and you might be a winner or a loser that night?
Yes. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Even being nominated, you're still winning though. So.
Yeah.
In fact, you want to be nominated as many times as you can, because then you're getting press every year. Mm-hmm. Once you win it, that's kind of it.
Right. But that's a nice stamp to have on your...
100%.
That's great. Yeah. Have you been nominated since?
No. Well, I mean, for Best Chef Northwest, you get it once, and then.
I see. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they have a bunch of other awards that they give out. So who knows? Maybe Peak Nutrition.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe it'll get on,
yeah.
The James Beard Foundation radar. We'll see.
I know. Can we nominate you, or does it have to come from within the industry?
Ooh, it has to come within. It has to come within the industry.
Darn.
Which is yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
But it's really nice that it comes from the industry.
Well. That is really nice. You were on the Iron Chef as well. Again, a show that I'm not a big TV watcher, but I did see the clip of you preparing your food with the Iron Chef. What year was that?
2010.
What was that experience like?
It was great.
So if I can, maybe for listeners who don't know, and this is just from the short clip that I watched, I just want to set this up a little bit. So you go in and there's one featured item that you have to prepare. Is that right? And in your case, it was cod. Mm-hmm. And you have an hour to do so?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
5 courses.
5 courses. First, how did you get invited to do that?
They called and asked if I would be on Iron Chef and compete.
Did you ever give it a second thought, or like a hesitation, or were you just like, yes,
I did. I'd never even seen the show. So I had heard of it, but I hadn't seen the show. So I had to, actually watch it and see if it looked like a legitimate competition. And it very much came off like a legitimate competition. So it seemed like a wonderful opportunity.
Were you nervous? Like scale of 1 to 10, how nervous were you going into that?
I would say all the way up until I started cooking 15.
Oh, really?
Nervousness. Uh-huh. And then once I started cooking, you just do what you do, and you get into flow mode, and you're
watching the clock.
brain off and you just cook. You just do what is natural to you.
Yeah. How many ingredients did you have access to other than the cod?
Quite a bit. I mean, they had quite a nice pantry and selection of produce and everything.
I see. So it's not like you have 5 items to create something with.
Right. Yeah.
You're well stocked.
Oh, well stocked.
In terms of that.
Yes.
Interesting. And then did you do preparation where you said, if we get fish, I'm going to do this. And if we get this, if we get beef, I'm going to come up with something like this. Did you have?
Absolutely.
Oh, you did. Okay. I was wondering about that. I was like, how would I go into something like that? So you kind of prepare in advance mentally what you might work on, and then and you won.
Yeah.
Another little feather in your cap.
Yeah.
Another award.
Yeah, and you get to choose your 2 sous chefs. So I had my sous chef and my chef de cuisine with me, so we won. All 3 of us won.
Right.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Where was that filmed?
It was in Manhattan, in the Chelsea building.
Mm-hmm. Neat. And do they have I know it was like Chef Morimoto?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Morimoto. Do they have the same chef on all the episodes?
No, they have, I think, like 5 different chefs.
I see. So they rotate through a cast. And did you get to pick who you were going to work against? Or did they just toss somebody in there, the Chef Morimoto?
They choose who you're going to be competing against, but you don't find out until that day. So
I see.
You can't figure out who, you're going to go up against and kind of study them or anything like that.
Right. Fun.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how fun that sounds. It does sound like a 15 on a stress scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely need your meditation and your gratitude journal.
Yeah.
For something like that. How often are you climbing?
A couple times a week in the morning, just at the gym.
And then do you actually get out into the mountains as well and go climbing?
When I can, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the summertime.
Yeah. Are you working 7 days a week?
Yes.
Is your restaurant open 7 days?
Yes.
Whew. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You get used to it. It becomes a part of your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true. Do you take vacations?
I do.
You have beautiful gallery on your website.
Oh,
You've
thanks.
got your photos
thank you
just
very
from your
much.
travels. I think it's Thailand and Greece. You've got some other places on there.
Middle East.
Yeah, in the
some
Middle
places
East.
in the Middle East.
Yeah. How do you plan your travels?
Well, when I went to Beirut and Cairo and Turkey, I grabbed a Lonely Planet book of the Middle East before I hopped on the plane literally that morning, and then cracked open the book and then said, okay, I'm going to do this.
What made you choose those destinations?
I've always been really just in love with the food in that Eastern Mediterranean area. So
do you feel like you travel for the food? That you really want to go see the food?
Very often.
Sicily was another one. Speaking of food, Sicily was another place in your
another
gallery.
thing. Like I had no, both those trips. Most of my trips, like no hotel stay planned, nothing. I just kind of grab the book and get on the plane. And quite honestly, it's because it's all I have the time for. I don't have time to really luxuriously plan out. And it's fun to be spontaneous. I think it's in my nature to seek out adventure, and it's a great way to increase the adventure when you don't know where you're going to sleep that night, or you don't know what town you're going to be in, or
So that kind of travel is not a 15 on the stress level for you, because that stresses out a lot of people. If they don't have everything planned down to the minute, then that's stressful. But for you, that's you just look at it as an adventure.
It's not stressful because I didn't have to plan it. So it actually takes the stress off. Because I plan so many other things in my world. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have this time where I don't have to plan a damn thing.
Yeah.
This is great.
So it really is a vacation.
Yeah.
And then when is your next vacation planned?
I don't have anything planned right now. The book comes out May 1st. So this year is all about the book.
Are you doing a book tour?
A little bit. We have some events. We have an REI event coming up. We're going to be at the Outdoor Retailer Show in Denver.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll be doing some events at the Mountaineers, and then, we'll be visiting some bookshops and some climbing gyms. And so, yeah, there'll be a tour. It won't be a big, luxurious,
right.
tour,
Yep.
but absolutely we'll definitely be
Well, you can
touring
also
around.
you could do more podcasts and do more media events too around it, just without having to actually be there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's helpful. So no,
Thank you for having me on. Speaking of.
thanks for your time. Yeah, I'm delighted, to have a sit down with you. You mentioned adventure. Where do you get that adventurous spirit from? Because just having you say that, and then have you describe the way that you travel, I can see how you approach your business as an adventure.
Absolutely.
That every day is an adventure.
Absolutely.
And every day's different, right?
And
there's there's no predicting what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's what keeps my energy level up, and you need to be on point and ready to go with whatever your, adventure is going to bring, whether it's, in Yosemite Valley and climbing El Capitan, or, being at the restaurant, or being in the Middle Eastern spring.
Where does that adventurous spirit come from?
I don't know. My mom asked the same question.
She doesn't know either.
Yeah.
She knows where your cooking
It
came
drives
from.
her a little crazy sometimes.
Are you an anomaly in your family, like a black sheep in terms of that?
I would say I'm definitely the one that is always adventuring and, kind of seeking out the unknown.
So it doesn't, your family can't trace it back to anything in particular?
No.
Did you always have that thread in you even when you were young, or was it something?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So even when you were young, that came out. So you popped out, and that was part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Where's the
think
adventure?
So. Yeah, everything from crawling out of the crib when I shouldn't be crawling out of the crib.
Okay.
I was that baby.
Yeah, you were. Okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah. We're all little beings that come into this world with our own personalities and character traits. So, and I know a lot of times things can be environment as well, right? But I think this is something that adventurous spirit is something that, kind of came with me into this world.
It must be difficult to draw a line between an adventure and kind of the good stress that comes with that adventure and the bad stress that came with your adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
Would you say that? Because I think that
Absolutely.
I would think that, like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to open these restaurants and I'm going to put all my heart and soul and, do these fabulous things, build this business. And it's part of the adventure. But then, and you're fueling on that, but then you're also getting tired at the same time.
Absolutely.
Like is it, am I doing,
nailed it.
Yeah. I'm doing too much, or is this just, I'm tired because I'm on this adventure? Like, I guess I'm not quite sure what my question is there, but it just seems like it would
How
be.
do you navigate that?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Yeah.
Like knowing when to stop, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was the executive chef at Earth and Ocean Restaurant, I had a staff of 40 and was in charge of, I had many departments that I was in charge of. And I was also, running marathons at the same time. So it's that same thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to work 12 hours, but today's my long run day. So I'm going to run 18 miles into work and just find a long loop so I can make it 18 miles, get into the kitchen, then you're on your feet and you're working for 12 hours and really thriving off of that. And I think you can get away with that in your early 30s. But as you get older, your body does not allow you to get away with that as much. So I think there's just physical indicators that start to happen that let you know that enough is enough. And you go through a period of time where you ignore those physical indicators and then they turn into injuries, right? And
Exactly.
then once they turn into injuries, you're like, okay, yeah, I get the message now. So then you have to learn to navigate that, and you start to really realize as each year passes, you have like one cup, right, of stress, whether it's good stress or bad stress, it's all in one cup. And when that cup is full, you do not get to pour any more into that cup.
Right.
You need to, make sure that you release some of that before you can add any more to it. that's where all the mindfulness practice and the, eating right and really focusing on getting good sleep, all of those are things that allow me to still be adventurous and have and still be hard charging, because you start to just navigate that landscape, as your body changes, you kind of become more in tune with, when can I really just really put the throttle down and just, go really big with all the vigor I've got, and when do I need to spend time being quiet and still and reflective and recovering. And it's a dance.
Mm-hmm. Do you use a sleep tracker?
No, I had at one point on my phone, and I thought about, and then I did play with it a little bit, but I found it to be kind of inaccurate. And I found when I was doing it, I would become obsessed with the data instead of listening to my own biorhythms.
Yeah.
And then I was also doing the HRV as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Very familiar with it.
Yeah. And so I was doing the heart rate variability. And
how were you tracking that?
Through your pulse that was tracked on an app on my phone. But then you have all these very subjective questions that they ask you, like, how are you feeling today? Do you feel sick? Are you feeling stressed? So then, between that and then it actually checking your heart rate for, I think, a good 60 seconds or whatever, it would come up with here's how much you're allowed to exercise today. You know? Or my Garmin watch, I'll go for a run and it'll say, don't exercise for, it will take you 12 hours to recover based off of your heart rate or whatever. So I think those tools are really good and they do have a lot of value. And I did rely on them for a period of time before I learned how to really tune in with my body. And I tell you, once I started really tuning into my body, and maybe having all of those tools was a part of what allowed me to gain that mindfulness to do it. And then also focusing on my nutrition, those things have really allowed me to kind of have a better understanding of okay, my body needs a break. Today's not a good day to climb, have a yoga session instead. So I try and just make sure I set aside time to exercise each day. And I don't hold myself to a schedule like how I used to, whether I was tired or not, whether I was feeling kind of, I had a muscle tweak or not. I would just forge ahead, because Tuesday is a day that you climb, and then Wednesday is a day that you go for your, run, and then, just just listening a little bit more. And if I can't climb that day, or if I can't run that day, or whatever it is, trying to spend that time working on whatever it is that is not allowing me to do that, So if something's going off my calf, then if I can't run that day, then I'll spend that hour working on my calf, and doing some good yoga or whatever, or, just trying to balance that out. But, it took some time. Definitely, I think once I hit 40, you don't necessarily get to choose whether or not you're going to do an activity, because your body is screaming at you. Mm-hmm. You can't just ignore it anymore.
Right. Yeah. I use an Aura ring to track my sleep, but it also does heart rate variability and a lot of other things. So it's a pretty good indicator of deep sleep, light sleep, and my awake time at night, and even my REM sleep, which they say you can't ever really track that perfectly unless you're hooked up to a EEG, I guess. But it's pretty good. But I find the same thing, that when I wake up in the morning and I check the app to see how I did, there might be a really high score, and it's today's a great day to be very active, but I feel tired. Or it may be low and say you need some recovery, but I feel great. So I think it is listening to yourself, but having that data is super helpful.
Absolutely, because it creates the mindfulness, right? That is the check-in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. As we just kind of wrap up here, is there anything that you'd like to cover or talk about that we haven't, other than we have to recommend everybody to go order a copy of your book. So definitely Peak Nutrition. But is there anything else that you'd like to just leave listeners with?
I would say just taking the time to do some self-care in whatever way that looks for you. So if you think that eating less sugar is a way that's going to bring energy back to your body because, your blood sugar is going to be stabilized, and so your energy will be stabilized and your mood swings will go away, then focus on that. If you're not getting good sleep, do whatever you can to just bring energy back to yourself.
I like to end these conversations with the question of the guest, what does it mean to you to be bold?
Put yourself out there. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and put yourself out there.
How do you feel like you've done that?
Opening up a restaurant, sleeping on a portaledge on the side of El Capitan for multiple days.
I'd say that's
how I travel.
Yeah, great. So you're living it.
You gotta live it. Mm-hmm. Gotta live it.
Awesome. Where can people find you? Social media? Are you active on social media?
Yeah. So Instagram, Mazama Nutrition, and on Twitter, Maria Hines. And
you have a beautiful Instagram account for Tilth too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh,
yes, I have an incredible staff that just manages our Tilth restaurant.
Yeah. Those photos
Instagram
are gorgeous.
And then Facebook Tilth Restaurant.
Okay, great. I'll link to all of those in the show notes and encourage people to go check that out and check out your book. And gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This was great.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait for the book to come out.
Yeah, thank you. And if anyone is, any listeners are on their own personal journey to nutrition and food as medicine, definitely mazamanutrition.com. It's all online, so it's nice and easy. People can, learn and have their little daily lessons in the privacy of their own home or wherever they're at.
Great. I'm going to check that out myself.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Maria was a lot of fun for me to talk to. She's so unassuming and so humble, but she is such an inspiration and just has so much positive energy that she gives out. If you enjoyed today's conversation, there are a number of other women in the world of food that I've spoken with whom you might also like to listen to. Chef Amy Sins from New Orleans goes back to episode number 8, and she is such a hoot. Diane Lavon is from Diane's Market Kitchen here in Seattle, also a total hoot. She was on episode number 9. And Lois Ellen Frank, another James Beard Award winner. She's from Santa Fe. She was on episode number 14. So go back and take a listen to those. You can find those in all of my other episodes, as well as links to all the things we chat about in these conversations at shesboldpodcast.com/episodes or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. In the next episode of the She's Bold podcast, I sit down with author, adventurer, and wildlife biologist Caroline Van Hemert. If you'd like to support the show and let me know how much you are inspired by these conversations and how much you look forward to hearing the uplifting stories from my guests, go to patreon.com/bebold. Patreon supporters get to submit questions for me to ask guests and become part of our private Facebook group, and that is ladies only. They also get access to bonus content, including questions I ask of the guest. To keep up with me in all of my travels and adventures when I'm actually out traveling and adventuring, you can connect with me by friending me on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram at both Beth Whitwa, that's BETHWHITWA, and Wandergal. Feel free to leave a message or a question at 877-280-5170. I really appreciate feedback. You can also email me at beth@shesboldpodcast.com. Let me know if you have any suggestions for future guests and or topics. Because I'm recording remotely these days, I have a little bit more flexibility on who I can bring on the show. So if you've got some ideas, just let me know. Ladies, you can join the Be Bold Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/BeBold group for support and encouragement for whatever ways you're trying to be bold. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the She's Bold podcast. And until next time, be bold.